I've got a project today that I've been meaning to get around to for a while. I'm building my own hand scraper. I've been using one of these from eBay for a while, and truth be told, these are really quite hard work. They're very uncomfortable to use. It's quite short. It's got an edge that doesn't stay sharp for very long. I mean, it's sharpened up at the moment. It will take an edge, but I'm regrinding this every couple of passes. And this shaft, which is completely inflexible, there's no spring in it at all. And really, it's the length and the lack of spring that makes this really hard to use. My wrists are absolutely knackered, so using this thing is pretty painful. That said, I've used it for a bunch of projects. For instance, this. This is a reference square. I don't have one. I don't have a granite reference square or a cast iron reference. So I had to make one up to check some of my vice jaws, just to make sure that they were perpendicular to the vice base. And so I scraped that in perpendicular with this face, which was fly cut. Well, they were both fly cut, and then this was scraped. The mill gets the fly cutting in to about, I don't know, 1.5 thousandths, maybe less actually. I think we ended up maybe down at perhaps 0.5 thousandth, and then it was scraped in more accurately than that, or at least as accurate as the surface plate is. Anyway, I've got a load of projects coming up which are going to require a lot more scraping than just this little sort of 2-inch square. So I thought it would be nice to have a proper hand scraper. And this is what we're going to be aiming for. As you can see, it's fairly simple. We have a handle, a shaft, and a clamp. And this is the plan. We're going to set up our sine bar for this 1 degree incline here. And that's what will provide the clamping pressure for our clamp. Then we're going to knock out the actual slot for the insert. Mill our clamp to length. Drill out for our screw. Mill down the tang. Then we're going to knock on our file handle. Then I'll quickly file off the bevel on the clamp and the shaft. And here it is, our finished scraper. I said it was simple. It's only 4 parts, 5 if you include our insert. This is 5mm by 20mm steel, and so we have an insert to match the width. I cut this down from a bar of about 200mm long. And this is YG8 cemented carbide. It's relatively cheap to buy off of eBay for a strip that long, but I would say that cutting it is going to be a hard part. I ended up scoring this with a diamond wheel with a little Dremel, and then snapping it. And that didn't work that well, so that's not advice. My advice would be don't do it that way. People have apparently successfully used diamond cutters in a tile cutter. I do have an electric tile cutter behind me on the shelf, so I might try that at some point. So I'd like to make a few more of these, especially with different radiuses and different rake angles. You probably can't see it on the camera here. This actually has 2 rake angles. This side has negative rake, that's for cast iron. And this side has a positive rake, and that's for steel. Scraping steel is much more like using a wood chisel, or at least I've found that. And I have to admit, I've had a go with this already, and it does work really well. And with the cast iron with the other side, it's just fantastic. So we're going to have to try this out. So I know I've tried it. I want you to see this because it's awesome. I've been using this for so long, and I'm not really sure what I was expecting from a new one. But the difference is night and day if you have the resources. And you could build one of these with a hacksaw, a couple of files. You don't need a mill to do this, or an angle grinder. Angle grinders are cheap. But if your choice is between building one of these and buying a set of these, spend 20 quid on the materials, buy one of these, you'll have enough left over for for a couple of them. The carbide's a little more expensive, but it's worth the money, I assure you. I'm going to show you that right now. I've blued up 2 different materials here. We've got a big chunk of cast iron, and down here is a piece of steel. As you can see, this is blued up mostly on the corners, so it's sitting high in the middle. I did try and get a nice thick layer of blue on there, which isn't really what I'd want if I was scraping these in, but I want you to be able to see what's going on. So, if we check which side of the blade that is, that's our cast iron side. And you can see that's like going through butter. You can just see the chips there. Don't know if they'll show up on camera, but the workmate's wobbling a little bit. But there you go. And that's our cast iron. Got to say, this is going to make life much, much easier. And bear in mind, being a little rough with this. This isn't something that we're scraping right now for accuracy. Let's try the steel. That means the other side, so we're using that side of the blade. I'm actually standing on my workmate to stop it from moving. And I've got the corners on this side. I know we're scraping at cross angles, but and that really is tearing chunks out of that steel. I'd say I'm pretty pleased with that. That's going to make my life much easier in the next few months. And I might even put together another one. And I hope that's been either slightly helpful or at least somewhat entertaining. I'm going to go and enjoy my scraper now.